Okay, super exciting stuff. We've got a lot to talk about really quick. I'm going to give you guys a quick breakdown of what we're going to be looking at here. I'm going to give my initial thoughts on the hero, and obviously an ability breakdown, which there's a lot of those already out there. But I'd like to do something more than that. I'd actually like to talk about like what the hero's playstyle is looking like right now, what you need to be doing in your venture playtesting, give some critiques on the character's design, things that I think need to be changed, things that need to be looked at, and then go on a little bit more from there. So just stay tuned here. This is going to be a really important video, and I think there's going to be a lot of unique things that you guys might find interesting in this video. And then obviously let me know what you guys think in the comments. So overall, really impressed with the hero. Feels dynamic, feels fluid. The juice is going to be mostly in the design itself, but I guess I can quickly go down to the abilities for those you guys don't know. So Venture's first thing, let's just start with the burrow. So the burrow is an invulnerability thing that takes time to go into. You can move around a little bit faster than moving speed, and then you pop out. Great. You do a little bit of damage on the pop out as well. The really thing that makes this really exciting, as I demonstrate another ability, is that this could be done on anywhere. You could burrow anywhere, and then do you see the vulnerability right there? I'm actually vulnerable when I move from verticality or whatever. So you can actually burrow and move on and drop out ledges and do all these kind of crazy things. There's a couple of really cool rollouts you could do in King of the Hill. I'm not going to go into the crazy tech here, but the TLDR is that it's invulnerability, but there is a window of vulnerability when you're entering and also when you're moving from high ground to other things. So again, like dropping down from here to here, I'm going to be vulnerable right there. You see that? So it's a really cool little bit of an ability. And the difference between it and Reaper's Wraith is really that little bit of vulnerability window, not just when you're moving from high ground to low ground, but when you're entering it. So it's definitely a unique take. And then obviously the major thing with this is that you're able to shoot and charge a big pop-up ability out there. I want to say it does around 100 damage. All the hard numbers are going to be available in the wiki. I'm not the guy to go for the hard numbers. But it allows you to combo your abilities on those targets. You don't need to fully charge it either. I could just tap it and just do a little bit of damage on the pop-up. You still see it's a little bit over 50 damage. So it's really exciting. The one other thing to note as well is that while you are underground, if you do use your drill, the cooldown is halved. So it's only 4 seconds instead. So I'm allowed to come out and then almost be able to drill again immediately afterwards. So while we're on that topic, let's actually talk a little bit about the drill. Because the obvious thing with drill is that, oh, it does damage. Like, look at this. It's like an extended boop damage thing. That's awesome. That's great. We love to see that. It also knocks people back as well, which is really cool. So you can actually move people backwards, and it's an extended boop too. So it's not just like a one-time thing like Lucio, but it's like continual drive forward. Very similar to Arista's javelin spin in that regard. And then obviously, it's going to do a pretty significant amount of damage and allow you to combo up with the stuff. But there's a lot of other things that you could do with the drill as well. I'm not going to go as much into the combos today because there are a lot of them. But one of the things that you could do is you can animation cancel your melee with it. So I can go into like a melee drill. And so I can combo like that. It's also area of effect as well, as you guys may have noticed. So there's a lot of things that you could do with that. So you could, I believe it's area of effect. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I thought I was like gaslighting myself there for a second. But the really cool thing with the drill is not just the ability and the booping and the movement and the half cooldown, but it's the ability to move yourself around, which it can go vertical. And the verticality is really high. So not only do you have 2 abilities that can do pretty significant damage when used as part of your combos, and then also nuances with those abilities, but you also have an ability, both of those abilities can be used as engage or escape tools. Chat, we have mobility creep, and I told you it feels good. So yeah, both abilities are really fun. The ultimate is kind of like an earth shatter, but it has a much longer range, and it does not stun. So what you're going to see here is a demonstration. It takes time to get to the target. You guys notice there's a travel time, and the maximum range I want to say is like 25 meters. Yeah, something like that. And it can be blocked by shields. Now, you might look at that and be like, oh, that's broken. It's like 130 damage, I believe, something like that. It's going to be able to 2-tap people. And yeah, in a lot of situations, it's going to be super broken. But I actually found this ultimate is a little bit harder than it looks to get value out of. And so you have to be pretty smart about when and where you use it. Otherwise, you actually will either die or just get no value out of it whatsoever. So it's fine ultimate, but there's a lot of like testing and tweaking that I think needs to be done. And also, it's going to take some skill to actually apply it. So let's talk about the melee really fast. So the melee is a unique thing with Venture, and it basically does, I want to say 70. Yeah, does about 70 damage. So it's a longer melee. So you do pay for the additional melee animation. I was able to play test this at Blizzard HQ. About a month ago, and I'm convinced, I don't remember, but I think they buffed the melee damage because it used to not be quite this strong, because that was one of my major critiques, is that for such a long animation, it feels bad to be stuck into it. But keep in mind that you're only stuck to it if you don't animation cancel, because you can animation cancel with both of your abilities. And I want to say your ultimate as well. Yeah, you can animation cancel with your ultimate as well. So like everything is animation cancelable, which is just phenomenal, guys. Like there's actually so much that you can do with that. So yeah, the additional melee, it's like an additional burst and then a DOT. Imagine like Junker Queen Knife doing an immediate burst of damage and a tick, 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 but a faster tick, tick, tick. So watch the HP again. Whereas you see how I miss the end of the melee damage if I move away? Something to kind of keep in mind. And again, you can animation cancel that. The only other thing to note with Venture that's really, really important is the fact that she does generate her shields for using an ability, even the burrow. So there's 40 shields there. There's an additional shield there. I want to say it's like you actually get more shields for using a certain ability. Maybe that's just me. So I think that was 40 shields for that. Yeah, 40 shields for that. Interesting, and then 35 shields. Yeah, so you have a cap of 75 shields that you can generate no matter what you use. And also keep in mind that your ultimate counts as shields as well. So when you pop your ultimate, you maintain shields. You guys see that? It does not decay for the entire time until you're done. So anytime that you use your ultimate, you're going to max out your shields and keep it, I think, almost every hit, I want to say. Anyway, there's a lot of fact-checking to do with this character. I'm honestly not really concerned about getting all the tiny little details right. There's so many other people who can do a better job of that, and it's not really that important in the long scheme of things. So basically, in terms of playstyle, I like to look at Venture as a short-range mobile brawl dive hybrid. Like, imagine if Reaper and Genji had a kid. Less mobility than Genji, but a lot less tank pressure than Reaper, but more mobility than Reaper. And slightly more combo-oriented, and certainly like a little bit more burst potential than Genji, at least consistent burst potential. But again, there's risk with the burst potential like there is with Genji. So there's a lot of combos, and crucially, there's a ton of choice. Like you could specifically have to think out like every single engagement that you do, and you have to think quickly. Awkward, or all these other coaches might come up with an idea of like a gameplay cycle or a gameplay loop like they did with Kiriko, but I actually don't think that there's going to be like a real clear gameplay loop. Like, oh, you take flank, you pop out, you shoot melee, boop out. Or you take an angle, shoot, then you're going to burrow in or drill in and then, dig yourself out of it. And I don't think that's going to be really the way to play Venture. I think it's going to be like Doomfist and Genji, where like there are ways that you could use cooldown cycles, but like I think if you lock yourself into one cooldown cycle without like looking at the situation, it's going to be really, really hard. So if you want to play Venture, the first thing I do is take really short flanks, short sightline flanks, try to take short angles, and then find opportunities to use an ability to get extra value, and then disengage, and then pretty much rinse and repeat. And then once you get comfortable with doing that, I think that you can start to practice understanding, like, when is it appropriate to use an ability, when is it appropriate not to use an ability, when should I use both abilities when my team is hard committing, maybe I have some sort of verticality, and so on. So there's a lot of situations where you're going to have to kind of like, there isn't a clear answer here. And I think that's super important. So let's actually talk about this. Ability dynamics. This is something that we complained about with Life Weaver and Malga, specifically with Cardiac, with Pedal to an extent, but it really, really Life Grip. There's actual choice with your abilities. So we talked about already. Do you want to engage offensively with your burrow? Do you want to engage offensively with your drill? Or do you want to use those abilities to disengage? Oh, and by the way, they're good in different types of disengagements. Burrow goes a lot further, right? But has the animation of going into the burrow as well as not having a lot of verticality. By the way, it does give you verticality if you charge it up. So that's another little nuance there. But then burrow doesn't go near as far. But like, let's say I'm shooting here and I want to disengage to high ground. By far, your best option is to use burrow, or to use your drill, rather. Whereas burrow does give you verticality, check that out, but it doesn't give you very high. So ultimately, like this, there's like so many choices that you have to do with this character. Oh no, by the way, if you burrow, charge, pop out, shoot melee, drill, animation cancel, all that crap, you're like, oh, that's an unbelievable amount of damage, but then now you're stuck without any abilities. So it's like this constant thing of like, what do you do? Do I use all my abilities? You have to make choices. Remember, one of the balance things that we talked about is that every ability needs to have at least 2 uses if it's going to be a balanced ability. I think that should be a fundamental rule of Overwatch, is that an ability generally needs 2 uses. If an ability doesn't have 2 uses, it's generally really frustrating. Orisa's Fortify, I find to be a failed ability, because even though it has technically 2 uses, the second reason to use it is so weak that it's almost totally worthless. And so Orisa's Fortify is just used to survive. Mercy's Resurrect, Life Weaver's Grip, Malga Cardiac Overdrive. A lot of the worst abilities in Overwatch are just single-use abilities. Some of the best are dynamic abilities that you have to make a choice about whether you're going to use them offensively or use them defensively. Risk versus reward. This is really good sign for Overwatch 2. It feels super unique, which to me is like, that's the Overwatch 2 classic, is that every character feels like it's designed from the art stage first, which I don't think that's not technically true by any means. But it definitely feels like there's a lot of characters that just kind of come into existence just because they look really cool. There's a really cool design, a monkey scientist, and saying like that. Like, let's just see what happens like that. And so to me, this is proof that you can have like these weird, creative, artsy designs and still make the hero actually function competitively in a first-person environment. And that's really good news for Overwatch 2 moving forward. And it's a huge kudos to not just the art team, but also the hero design team as well. Overall, this is really just an initial impression, so like, let's not shake our hands and congratulate everybody just yet. But time will tell here, but I'm pretty confident to say that we don't have a Life Weaver Malgar or even a Ramatra on our hands. I was able to tell, I will pat myself in the back for one thing. I was able to tell almost immediately, even from the gameplay examples from Life Weaver Malgar and Ramatra, that those characters were not going to be healthy game designs, nor particularly fun. And immediately I was correct. I've not been perfect on some of the trickier ones, like Kiriko and Sojo were definitely hard reads for me. But the obvious ones totally read right from the get-go. And I think most people were pretty much able to read from the get-go. This character, not one of those characters at all. So even if there's going to be some issues with Venture moving forward, there always will be issues with any hero moving forward. I don't think that we're going to have another Life Weaver Malgar on our hands, and I think we're going to have a pretty nice banger. Finally, actually some feedback here. So let's just go through a couple of things here. I have a list of some things. First thing, this drill entry is punishable. A lot of people are complaining that drill entry needs to be immediate. I'll get to that one later. But maybe it's okay if the delay was a little bit slower. It's just a little bit awkward how long that delay into drilling into the ground is. Maybe there's a middle ground that we could find here. But as it is right now, it just does seem a little bit too long. Keep in mind, you can strafe while you're doing it. You guys see that? I'm allowed to maintain full motion of my character. Maybe this is something that we don't actually really want to change, but it is definitely like one of those like little awkward quality of life things that you'll just have to keep an eye on. And they're probably gonna have to tweak this number maybe up, maybe down by like micros, like milliseconds essentially, right? Also, one of the things that I don't like about as fluid as this character feels, there's one thing that feels really unfluid, which is exiting the drill, like popping out and then using your drill dive. I'm not using the technical terms, but you guys will see what I'm saying. You're not able to animation cancel that one smoothly, so you're not able to get like this crazy verticality, which I feel like you should be able to. For example, if I do my drill dive exit here, you see that delay before I could actually use my drill? It should be pop drill. Like, it should be very fluid right when I tap it, even canceling the pop out just so that I could drill faster. I think that would allow for easier combos, but also allow for a more fluid mobility with the character. I see no reason why that wouldn't be the case. Also, one of the other things with this character is because they have so much mobility and a pretty decent amount of verticality, surprisingly for a ground-based character, one of the things that feels really bad is that like this feels really bad. And then not being able to use this. So like one of the and easily the worst part of the ultimate for me is how many times that you want to use it and you can't use it. The fact that you could use your abilities with your ultimate is really important. But the fact that I can't use my abilities with my ultimate because they just half the time put me in the air or put me in a situation where I can't use it feels really, really bad. The fact that you have to anchor your feet on the ground feels like an understanding thing, like with what the ultimate does, but it doesn't feel very fun to utilize. And so I think that's one of the major issues that I have with the ultimate is like, I was surprised at the number of times where I'm like mashing my button. I'm like, oh, I can't do it. And it feels a little rough. In terms of like balance stuff, this is something I'm sure they're going to tweak already, but just I do think the ultimate charges a little bit too fast. Drill cooldown is only, this is a major complaint I have here. So you're going to notice something, guys. When I read the text, it said something about drill cooldown is half when you use it underground. I thought that meant if you drilled and then went underground, it would regenerate twice as fast, similar to like Doomfist's ultimate, right? I thought that was like, oh, that's cool, right? But that's not actually the case. What that ends up meaning is that there's a very specific order of abilities that you have to utilize for to get the half cooldown. In other words, I have to burrow and then drill while I'm burrowed for me to get the half cooldown. I actually don't like that. What I would prefer, and to offer a little bit more dynamic and choice with how you use the abilities, I'd prefer if they didn't have to cooldown, they just doubled the regeneration across the board. Again, like Doomfist's ultimate. So if I use my drill, then burrow, double cooldown, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or something along those lines, right? And then if I use my drill, waiting for my burrow to come back. If I use my drill underground, it's the same thing. It's not 4, it's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. So it's basically the same thing, but it doesn't punishing you for use drill then burrow. I don't like the fact that you have to only do it that way if you want to capitalize off of that dynamic. It should be a little bit of both ways, if that makes sense. Again, it's what opens up play choices, like play style choices, and what you want to do with the character. Whereas this one really only allows you to drill and then burrow if you want to use a special niche. And I think that's too narrow minded. I don't like that. Drill boop height discrepancy with venture height. This is something that I think Quake talked about, where it's like sometimes you will boop people and you boop them lower or higher than you actually go, so it makes comboing weird. It's like an old Doomfist uppercut thing. So just something to kind of keep an eye on for terms of combo fluidity. And then also early exit with drill. So if I pop my drill exit early, it could feel like you're locked into that animation just a little bit. So maybe it's something that kind of fluidify to add some fluidity to. I'm not really honestly sure, but just something I'm like keeping an eye on. Okay, so things that I would say are false or I don't agree with. What are the lists here? I don't think she needs more range. I've seen that a couple of times. People are like, I think they need more range. I don't think Venture needs more range. I think that there's like a risk reward to like what the character has, and like Venture has enough mobility to like actually make it function. And I think that we need to be leaning more into that. I think like if you have the mobility, you don't necessarily need the range. You shouldn't have your cake and eat it too. And I think there's ample opportunity to be able to close the distance with this character. Maybe there's some minor tweaks to the range, but I actually think that the range is pretty much perfect. I don't think burrow should be instant as either. Again, like we don't really want to Reaper Wraith 2.0 because this ability is better. Maybe not better, but it's different. It does damage. It has dynamics. It allows for more combos, allows for more mobility. You can go further with it when you use it with burrow. So I don't think that having a Reaper instant Wraith is good. Like I think the fact that there is a little bit of downside to using it, there is a little bit of risk of using it is good. We don't want any complete get out of jail free cards a la Kiriko TP, right? I don't think ultimate should go through shields. I know people have said that as well. Like, oh, this ultimate's bad. It's just instantly blocked by everything in the game. But you know what? That's how it should be. Like this ultimate, if it's too weak, okay, it's too weak. But it's not going to be. It shouldn't be too weak because it has too many ways to counterplay. Every ultimate should have counterplay. I think that's very normal. So I think that we should always keep counterplay involved with this ultimate. Things to keep an eye on. So the ability here is the ability to close long distances. Like how is this character going to feel versus poke? Like the ability to close long distances versus poke. I think it should be okay with both burrow and drill and how fast that you can actually move while you're burrowed as well. Like this kind of stuff here. I think in close distances is pretty good. And with a little bit of the shield sustenance, plus the new heal passive that all characters have, I think there's enough self-sufficiency to be able to take more flanks, but something to kind of keep an eye on. Obviously, hitbox and the ability to CC/burst down. A lot of like more mobile characters, we want to keep an eye on their hitbox specifically. Characters like Genji, Tracer, Sombra generally have slightly slipperier hitboxes. So depending on how big Venture feels, there might be a little bit too much leeway to be able to punish Venture from that. Oh, come on. Not a real archaeologist. But yeah, so I think we need to keep an eye on that. And then also, obviously, we need to keep an eye on shield chaining. So like the ability to kind of keep your shields permanently charged with your ultimate. There might be a world with like a little bit of support. A Venture that's ulting is just really too hard to kill. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one as well. But so overall, I think cautiously optimistic. Only cautious because I don't want to be like out here like full out. This character is perfect. Nobody's played this character enough to really give that opinion. I'm thankful to the hero design team for putting out something that's a lot of fun. So finally here, this is going to be tough. Let's talk about gender. This is going to be a hard saying, but I believe it, so I got to share it. Let's talk about politics in video gaming. I think people talk about politics, they don't bring politics into gaming. They're missing a really important part of the video game community, which is that representation matters to a lot of people. It's what makes people interested in the game, because if there's somebody from my country or somebody that looks like me, and that person is me, and that's what gets people invested in the game. And so it's not just a smart business decision. I think it's a kind of cool decision overall. And I think Overwatch 2's broad player-based demographic comes from a representation of trying to represent all types of people. In addition to that, while many people say that Venture is just a video game character, you're right. Like Venture's not going to get offended if you call Venture a he, she, or whatever, right? If Venture's not going to get, it's just pixels, right? But it's not about Venture here. This isn't about Venture. It's what Venture represents that you run the risk of hurting. The best example I can give you is that the whole McCree Cassidy thing. I never really correct people when it comes to the McCree Cassidy thing, but if I ever knew anybody that was, let's say, victimized by, I think it was Jesse McCree, whoever the Blizzard executive that was abusing women, then I would never, ever say McCree in front of that person because I know that that was very sensitive to them, and I would never run the risk of hurting their feelings or upsetting them. And so I would never ever, like I would say, hey, I'll make sure to say Cassidy in front of that person because that's the type of person that represents the type of person who might be offended by this. See, the venture is it's not about venture, right? It's about what venture represents. And I think that like if for anybody that, if you're purposefully trying to antagonize or, just be disrespectful for the sake of being disrespectful, you're not hurting venture. That's never the question. It's the other people that you're hurting. So also, while we're on that point, make sure that you're not jumping down people's throats for accidentally saying he or she. I think I just already said it at least a couple times in this video. I literally not even aware of it. It's normal. I've had people in my chat, people in my voice call, my patrons going, oh, he looks really cool or she looks really cool. People just aren't always in the loop with this stuff. Don't assume that people are being antagonistic. I know it's really easy to be cynical in this world, but be respectful, be kind, and that I think goes for both sides of the equation. So as a Christian, the Bible says God made male and female, but the Bible also says love your neighbor as yourself. And I know Jesus died for everybody, regardless of gender. So if there's any debate or disagreement about distinction between sex and gender, I'm not really sure that this is a discussion that's going to be respectfully held over the internet. And I really, really do not want to compromise. I never want to compromise my ability to witness and minister to other people over stupid video game pixels. To me, the most important matter is what says in the bottom right of every video and every stream I've ever done. And he is the propitiation for our sins, and not for our sins only, but for the sins of the whole world. And that's really it. I don't know if Venture's male. I don't know if Venture's female, but for the people who like Venture, for the people who like Venture and who are like Venture, I'm going to pray for you. And I'm going to treat them with respect that somebody who is created in the image of God deserves. And that's it. So yeah, that's all I've got. Let me know what you think of Venture in the comments, and I'll see you later.